Keanu Reeves, dressed casually in a simple jacket and jeans, strolled down a familiar street. He wasn't in a rush, just enjoying the calm pace of a rare day off, blending into the crowd as he often did. As he passed a park bench, something caught his eye: a man sitting alone, his clothes tattered and worn, a cardboard sign resting on the ground in front of him. The sign read, "Veteran Needing Help." Keanu paused for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly as he noticed the man's downcast expression. The man looked to be in his late 40s, his face weathered with age and hardship, and though he was surrounded by the usual city bustle, he seemed isolated, alone in his struggles. Most people walked past without a second glance, caught up in their busy lives. Keanu, however, couldn't ignore the quiet plea in the man's eyes. There was something about him, something that drew Keanu in, a feeling that perhaps this man's story needed to be heard. Without thinking twice, Keanu walked over to the bench and gently sat down beside the man, offering a kind smile. "Hey there," Keanu said softly, his voice warm but without the usual fame-driven attention. "You doing all right?" The man looked up, startled for a moment. His eyes registered confusion, and then something else, hope. It wasn't often that someone stopped to talk to him, much less someone as recognizable as Keanu Reeves. "Yeah, I'm doing okay," the man replied, his voice rough from years of disuse. Just another day, trying to get by." Keanu nodded, his expression sincere as he met the man's gaze. "I see your sign. Can you tell me your story?" The man hesitated for a moment, seemingly unsure of how to respond. Finally, he sighed deeply, as if deciding whether or not to share his past with a stranger. And then, in a quiet voice, he began. The man's eyes seemed to wander for a moment as he gathered his thoughts. He took a deep breath, and Keanu could sense the weight of his past in the quiet pause. "I was in the military," the man began, his voice steady but tinged with sadness. "I served for over 10 years. It was supposed to be my way out, the chance to build something better for myself. But when I came back, everything changed." He looked down at his hands, rough from years of hardship. There were no jobs, no support. I didn't know where to turn. The friends I had made, the family I had left behind, none of them were around when I needed them. Eventually, it all caught up to me. I lost everything, my house, my family, and now here I am, just trying to survive. Keanu listened intently, his face calm and compassionate. He had heard similar stories before, but something in this man's voice struck him deeply. It wasn't just the sense of loss, but the sense of hopelessness that seemed to cling to him. "I've been on the streets for a while now," the man continued, shaking his head as if in disbelief. "I try to get a job, but every time I do, they look at me like I'm broken. Like I'm not good enough anymore. People pass me by every day. They see the sign and just keep walking. No one ever really listens." Keanu sat silently for a moment, processing the man's words. He understood how difficult it could be to ask for help, especially after years of fighting alone. The idea of feeling invisible, of being passed by, struck a chord with him. "I'm sorry to hear that," Keanu said quietly, his voice full of empathy. "You don't deserve to be treated like that." The man gave a small, rueful smile. "Yeah, well, you get used to it." Keanu didn't respond right away. Instead, he thought for a moment about what the man had said, the lost hope, the struggles, the feeling of being discarded. Then, as if a light bulb had gone off in his mind, he turned toward the man with a soft yet determined expression. "What if I could help you get back on your feet?" Keanu asked. "I've got connections. I can help you find a job, get you into some housing, whatever you need to get started again. I believe everyone deserves a second chance, and you're no different." The man looked at Keanu, eyes wide in disbelief. He had heard offers like this before, but none had ever been genuine. People said things all the time, until they realized just how difficult it was to get someone off the streets. But there was something different about Keanu. His sincerity shone through, and for the first time in a long while, the man allowed himself to believe that help might actually come. You would do that for me?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly with emotion. Keanu nodded without hesitation. "Of course. We'll start small, one step at a time. But I'll help you." The man's eyes filled with tears, but he quickly wiped them away, embarrassed by the sudden surge of emotion. Keanu, however, gave him a gentle, understanding smile. "It's okay. No need to apologize." And with that, something shifted. The man, who had felt invisible and abandoned for so long, now felt the faint stirrings of hope, a hope that, despite everything, maybe his story wasn't over just yet. The conversation had shifted from small talk to something much deeper, and the air between Keanu and the man, Mike, was now charged with possibility. Mike, still in disbelief, clung to the words Keanu had just spoken. What if I could help you get back on your feet? For the first time in a long while, Mike felt like he wasn't invisible, like someone saw him not just as a homeless man, but as a person with potential, a person worthy of help. Keanu looked him in the eyes, his expression sincere. Mike, everyone deserves a second chance, especially someone who has served their country. I'm going to help you, but it's up to you to take the first steps too. It won't be easy, but I'll be here to guide you. Mike swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. He had been let down too many times before, but something in Keanu's voice made him believe this time could be different. There was no ulterior motive here, no hidden agenda. This was pure kindness, genuine offer to help. I don't know what to say, Mike said, shaking his head, still processing the offer. I've been trying for years. I've lost so much already. Keanu placed a reassuring hand on Mike's shoulder. That doesn't matter. What matters is what we do next. You don't have to do it alone anymore. Mike felt a lump form in his throat. It was overwhelming, the idea of someone actually offering him a way out of his circumstances. He had tried so many times, with little to show for it. But now here was someone with a genuine offer of help. I don't know where to start, Mike admitted, his voice soft. Keanu smiled. We start by getting you the help you need, whether that's food, a place to stay, or connecting you with resources. Let's start with what you need right now, and we'll take it from there. Mike nodded slowly, the overwhelming fear of failure still present, but now mingled with the faintest glimmer of hope. He had nothing left to lose, and maybe, just maybe, this was the chance he'd been waiting for. The following day, Keanu took Mike to a local veteran support center that provided resources for individuals like him, homeless veterans in need of assistance. Mike had heard about the place before, but had never thought to visit, thinking it would be just another dead end. But Keanu's presence gave him the push he needed to step through the doors. The center's staff welcomed them warmly, and it didn't take long before Keanu and Mike were sitting down with a counselor. The counselor, a kind woman named Sarah, listened intently to Mike's story. She asked about his military service, his struggles since returning, and what support he had tried to access. Mike shared everything he could, his emotions raw, but with Keanu by his side, he felt safe enough to be honest. Sarah, after hearing his story, smiled gently. Mike, you've been through a lot, and it's clear that you've had a tough time. But it's never too late to start over. We have housing programs, job training, and even mental health services that can help you rebuild. You're not alone in this. Keanu remained quiet but close, offering silent support as Sarah and Mike discussed the options available to him. For the first time in years, Mike felt like he was being given a genuine chance, not just a handout, but the tools and guidance to help himself. After the meeting, Keanu and Mike took a tour of the center, where Mike could see others working towards similar goals, getting off the streets, finding work, and rebuilding their lives. Keanu helped him fill out some initial paperwork for housing assistance, job training, and mental health counseling. One step at a time, Keanu reminded him. It's a process, but we'll tackle it together. Mike, though still overwhelmed, felt the weight on his shoulders lift slightly. He wasn't sure how everything would turn out, but for the first time in years, he had a plan, a real path forward. The following morning, Keanu and Mike headed to a local charity that provided free clothing and grooming services for those in need. Mike had never been the type to ask for help, but now with Keanu by his side, he felt a sense of relief. The thought of looking presentable again, after months of neglect, felt like a fresh start. As they entered the small building, a warm and welcoming volunteer greeted them. How can we help today? She asked with a friendly smile. Keanu explained that Mike was getting ready for a job interview and needed some help finding appropriate clothing. The volunteer led them to a section of the store where clothes were donated for people in need. Mike was given a chance to try on a few suits and shirts, and Keanu picked out a dark blue blazer that complemented the soft white shirt Mike had chosen. This looks great, Keanu said, offering a thumbs up as Mike gazed at himself in the mirror. For the first time in months, Mike stood up straighter, his reflection a reminder that he was still someone deserving of dignity. Next, they moved to the grooming area, where volunteers offered free haircuts, shaves, and other services. Mike sat down in a chair, his hands trembling a bit as the barber began to trim his hair. Keanu sat quietly beside him, offering light conversation as the barber worked. As the last stray hairs were clipped away, Mike looked at his reflection and felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. His face was a little cleaner, his posture a little straighter, and he looked like someone who could face the world again. Keanu smiled at him. You look like a new man, Mike. Ready to show them what you're capable of. Mike ran a hand over his freshly shaved face, nodding. I feel better. A little bit of dignity can go a long way. Keanu handed him the suit jacket, a symbolic gesture of the new chapter Mike was beginning to write. This is just the start, Keanu said. Let's get you ready for that interview. The day of the interview arrived, and Mike felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Keanu, who had been with him every step of the way, reassured him as they drove to the company's office. Mike had never felt more prepared, but the nerves were still there, especially after everything he had been through. Keanu, noticing his anxiety, turned to him with a calm smile. Just remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about showing them who you are and what you can bring to the table. You've got this. Mike nodded, his palms sweaty but determined. As they arrived at the building, Keanu parked the car and walked with him to the entrance. The nerves were still present, but they were now mixed with something else, confidence, thanks to the help he had received and the belief that someone truly cared about his future. They reached the receptionist, and Mike gave his name. A few minutes later, the hiring manager, a kind woman named Laura, appeared and led him into a meeting room. Keanu gave Mike a final nod of encouragement before stepping aside, knowing that the rest of the process was up to him. The interview began, and Mike was initially quiet, but as the conversation progressed, he began to open up. He talked about his military service, the skills he had acquired, and how he was eager to prove himself once more. The manager listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about his experience and what he could bring to the job. Keanu's words echoed in his mind. It's about showing them who you are. Mike began to relax, realizing that he wasn't being judged for his past mistakes. Instead, Laura seemed genuinely interested in what he could contribute now. He spoke with honesty and passion, his eyes meeting hers with conviction. He didn't need to hide who he was anymore. By the end of the interview, Laura smiled warmly. I'm really impressed, Mike. I think you'll be a great fit for the team. We'll reach out to you soon with the details. Mike's heart raced as he stood up, shaking Laura's hand. He wanted to jump in excitement, but he held it back, trying to remain composed. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I really appreciate the opportunity. As he stepped outside, Keanu was waiting for him, his face bright with anticipation. Mike's face broke into a wide smile. I got it, he said, almost in disbelief. She wants me to start next week. Keanu's smile grew even wider, but there was no grand reaction. He simply patted Mike on the back and said, I knew you could do it. You've earned this. A few weeks after the interview, Mike had settled into his new job. It wasn't a high-paying position at first, but it was steady work, and more importantly, it gave him a sense of purpose and pride. Every day, he woke up with a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time, the feeling of being productive, of contributing. The day Mike received his first paycheck, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of emotions. It wasn't much, but it was his. He had earned it through hard work, and that meant more than any amount of money. It was a symbol of his new beginning. The paycheck wasn't just a piece of paper. It represented the fact that he was capable, that he could build something for himself again. Keanu had been with him every step of the way, offering advice and encouragement, but this moment was Mike's. As he stood at the counter of the bank to deposit his check, he couldn't help but smile at the teller. I never thought I'd be doing this again, Mike said softly, holding up the check for deposit. The teller smiled at him, unaware of the true significance of the moment. It's always a great feeling when you've earned your paycheck, she said kindly. Mike nodded, his voice quiet. Yeah, it really is. Later that evening, Keanu met Mike at a small cafe they had frequented before. Mike walked in, still carrying the envelope with his paycheck, and immediately Keanu stood up, offering a knowing smile. How does it feel? Keanu asked, his voice warm with curiosity. Mike took a seat and handed him the envelope, still in awe. It feels like I can finally breathe. Like I'm actually doing something for myself again. Keanu took a moment, glancing down at the check and then back at Mike. It's more than just a paycheck, he said. It's proof that you've got what it takes. It's your foundation. And you're building it one step at a time. Mike's eyes filled with a quiet sense of pride. I haven't had a paycheck in years, he admitted. I wasn't sure I'd ever feel this again, like I actually belonged somewhere. But now it feels real. Keanu gave him a reassuring nod. And it's just the beginning. Keep going. Keep showing up. That's what matters most. As the weeks passed and Mike's life began to stabilize, a thought lingered in the back of his mind. He had spent so many years drifting alone, cut off from the family he once held dear. His time on the streets had pushed him away from everyone he loved, and the shame of his circumstances had kept him from reaching out. But now, with a steady job and a small apartment to call his own, Mike began to think about the family he had lost touch with, especially his daughter, who he hadn't spoken to in over 5 years. The regret weighed heavily on him. He missed her, and he realized he had let his own struggles get in the way of being the father she deserved. One evening, as Keanu and Mike sat in a cafe reflecting on the progress Mike had made, Mike shared his thoughts. "I've been thinking about my daughter," he said, his voice quiet but filled with emotion. "I don't even know if she remembers me. I've missed so much of her life." Keanu, always understanding, nodded. "It's never too late to reconnect," he said. "The hardest part is taking that first step. You can't change the past, but you can build a new future." Mike hesitated for a moment, then pulled out his phone. "I don't know where to start, but I'm going to try." He found her number, still saved in his contacts from years ago, and stared at it for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the dial button. Keanu looked over, offering a supportive smile. "You've got this. Just tell her the truth, that you want to be there for her. That's all you can do." With a deep breath, Mike pressed the call button. It rang for a moment before a voice on the other end answered, and Mike's heart skipped a beat. "Hello? Hey, is this Sophie?" Mike's voice trembled slightly as he spoke, unsure of what to say next. There was a long pause before the voice responded. "Dad? Is that you?" Sophie's voice, now a little older, sounded uncertain but hopeful. Mike swallowed hard, the emotions bubbling to the surface. "Yeah, it's me," he said softly. "I know it's been a long time. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sorry. I want to be a part of your life again, if you'll let me." Tears welled up in Mike's eyes as he waited for her response. He had been holding on to so much guilt and shame for so long, and now, in this moment, he was finally confronting it. Sophie's voice was quiet, but there was a warmth there. "Dad, I've missed you. I wasn't sure if you were ever coming back, but I've always hoped you would." Mike's heart lifted. "I'm here now," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to be here for you. I've got a job, a place to stay. I'm doing better, and I want to be the father you deserve." The conversation continued, and they spoke for hours, slowly reconnecting. Mike learned about the life his daughter had built without him, her successes, her struggles, and the growth she had gone through. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and Mike knew this was just the beginning of rebuilding their relationship. With each passing day, Mike's life grew more stable, but he knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges. Keanu had been by his side every step of the way, offering advice, encouragement, and wisdom that Mike had never realized he needed. The support wasn't just about getting a job or a place to stay. It was about changing his mindset, building confidence, and learning to trust himself again. One evening, after Mike had finished work, Keanu invited him over to his place for a casual dinner. They'd grown comfortable together, and Keanu knew that Mike still had a lot of questions about his new life. Over dinner, they talked about everything from finances to relationships, from setting goals to maintaining a healthy balance in life. "You know," Keanu said as they sat down with their meal, "when I was starting out, I didn't have someone to show me the ropes. I had to figure it all out on my own, and that made things harder. I want to make sure you don't have to struggle through that part alone." Mike nodded, thankful for Keanu's steady presence. "I don't know where I'd be without your help, Keanu," he admitted. "Everything's different now, but I'm still trying to figure out how to keep going." Keanu smiled. "It's all about taking one step at a time. Don't rush the process. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but as long as you're moving forward, you're doing the right thing. And trust me, you're capable of way more than you realize." They spent the evening discussing everything from budgeting and saving money to dealing with the challenges of finding purpose in everyday life. Keanu encouraged Mike to set small, attainable goals and take pride in each accomplishment, no matter how minor it seemed. Mike began to understand that rebuilding his life wasn't about getting everything perfect right away. It was about progress, little wins every day that would eventually add up to something great. Keanu also shared a few of his own personal struggles, showing Mike that even someone like him had faced challenges and doubts. "You've made it this far, Mike," Keanu said, looking him in the eye. "That's proof of your strength. You've got the ability to build something solid. Just keep taking steps forward." Mike, still processing everything he had learned over the past few months, felt a deep sense of gratitude for Keanu's mentorship. The man had shown him more than just how to get a job or find housing. He had shown him how to believe in himself again, how to fight for the life he deserved. "I want to keep going," Mike said, his voice more certain than ever. "I'm not going to stop. And I want to make sure I'm here for Sophie, too. I don't know what the future holds, but I know it's brighter than it was before." Keanu smiled, proud of the transformation Mike had gone through. "I know you will, Mike. You've already shown what you're capable of." As weeks turned into months, Mike's transformation became more evident. The man who had once sat on a park bench, feeling invisible and forgotten, now walked with his head held high, his posture straighter, and his steps more confident. His job at the local company had evolved from part-time to full-time, and with each paycheck, Mike felt more in control of his future. He had even started setting aside money for savings, something he had never imagined he would be able to do. The newfound stability in his life was not just about finances. It was about regaining his sense of self-worth. Mike was learning how to be independent again, how to make decisions for himself without feeling the weight of his past mistakes hanging over him. He felt proud every time he paid his rent on time, and each day when he clocked in at work, he reminded himself that he was building something better. He also began to engage with the world around him in a way he hadn't for years. He attended community events, volunteered at the Veterans Center where he had once received help, and even started going to the gym to get his health back on track. The change wasn't just physical. It was mental and emotional, too. One evening, after work, Mike sat down to a quiet dinner in his apartment. As he ate, he reflected on the incredible journey he had been on, how far he had come from the days of living on the streets, struggling to survive. He couldn't help but smile as he thought about the sense of accomplishment that came with each small victory. Keanu had been there through every step, offering advice and reminding him of his progress. He had become not just a mentor, but a friend, a steady, guiding presence in Mike's life. Mike knew that he still had a long road ahead of him, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was on the right path. He no longer saw his past as a weight around his neck, but as a part of who he was, a part that had shaped him into the person he was becoming. A year had passed since that first meeting on the park bench. Mike had come a long way. He had a steady job, a stable living situation, and a growing sense of self-respect. But the most meaningful change of all was the relationship he had begun to rebuild with his daughter, Sophie. One afternoon, Mike and Keanu met up for coffee at a cafe where they had shared many quiet conversations over the months. Mike had called Keanu earlier that day, asking if they could meet. Keanu, as always, agreed, sensing that there was something important on Mike's mind. As Keanu walked into the cafe, he saw Mike sitting at a corner table, waiting. Mike's face had changed since they first met. His eyes were more confident, his smile more genuine, and there was a calmness about him that Keanu hadn't seen before. When Mike saw Keanu approach, he stood up and offered a handshake. "I just wanted to say thank you," Mike said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've completely changed my life. Without you, I would have just kept going down the same path, but you believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Keanu smiled warmly, sitting down at the table. "I didn't do anything special, Mike. You're the one who put in the work. You're the one who made the choice to change." Mike shook his head, his eyes beginning to water. "Maybe, but you made me believe I could. You didn't just help me get a job or get off the streets. You showed me that I had a future. I didn't even know I had one until you stepped in." Keanu nodded, his expression sincere. "It was always in you, Mike. You just had to see it for yourself." Mike paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I've been working on my relationship with Sophie, too. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. I'm doing better for her now. I don't know if I can ever fully make up for lost time, but I'm trying." Keanu smiled, his eyes reflecting pride. "You're doing the right thing. One day at a time, Mike. That's all anyone can do." Mike took another deep breath, gathering his emotions. "I'll never be able to thank you enough for everything, Keanu. You didn't just help me find a job. You gave me my life back." Keanu's response was simple, but it was enough. "I'm proud of you, Mike. You've come a long way, and you're doing great. Keep moving forward." The two of them sat in silence for a few moments, each reflecting on the journey they had been through. Mike had transformed from a man on the streets, struggling with hopelessness, to a person who was now living with purpose. It had been a long road, but Mike had made it. As they parted ways that afternoon, Mike gave Keanu one last smile, feeling a sense of closure and gratitude. He had rebuilt his life from the ground up, and he knew that this new chapter would be a testament to the power of kindness, hard work, and believing in the potential of others.